e-hailing drivers say they're being exploited by the likes of Uber and Bolt, and they want government to stop folding its arms. In March, the National Land Transport Amendment Bill was passed, which does empower a minister to make regulations for e-hailing standards and requirements, but that is yet to be implemented. Let's speak more on behalf of the drivers. We're now joined by Chris Ravhuhali, a convener for Unity in Diversity, the Tshwane region e-hailing services. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Ravhuhali. What exactly do you want government to do?
Thank you to you and your viewers. We want government to regulate the e-hailing industry because without regulation, we are suffering a problem of that. Uber and Bolt changes prices as they wish. It depends on how they could have slept the previous night. They will just come and decrease prices, and we will only be sent a message that prices has gone down, no reason whatsoever. We are not consulted. Government is not consulted. GTIC is not consulted. Public participation is not done. The riders themselves are not consulted.
Yeah.
Mr.
Ravhuhali, we did ask Uber to give us their response as well. They said they are engaging with drivers as they always do, not only around protest action. They also said that drivers can choose and you get the pricing before you pick that trip. Is that true?
There's nothing true there. That is a blatant lie. It's a green lie that has been orchestrated in some office of Uber that we don't even know which one is that.
Okay, so you can't see how much you're going to make on the next trip, and you say yes or no. Can you not get a full transparent pricing at that point?
Can you repeat the question? I missed anything.
So as I understand it,
yes.
As I understand what Uber is saying, you get a choice whether you take a trip or not, and you can see exactly how much you're going to make on that trip or what the trip is priced at before you say yes or no.
Listen to this. This is what I'm trying to communicate to you. The decision doesn't start there. It starts expecting the pricing. If we were consulted to say that, look, petrol has gone up now, we are going to take our prices by this much, choose yes or no. What I'm saying to you is that Uber will decrease prices, maybe let's say by 20 rands. They will send us a new contract in the morning that says we have taken the prices down.
Yeah.
You can accept the contract and go online or decline and die in poverty. We have no choice but to accept. And you find that the amount that they are charging, it is exploited. It is exploitative. That is why we are saying regulation must come on board. The visibility of trips is after they had decreased prices. We have no choice because we are hungry. You are supposed to accept a trip and work and still get that 35 rands after traveling 8 kilometers with 4 people in your car and luggage. And from that 25 rand, you don't get the whole amount. You end up getting 15 rand 50. Uber takes the rest.
Mr. Ravhuhali, you have my complete sympathy. I know that there are a lot of Uber drivers who are not just not even meeting their monthly costs of running the car and things like that. So I understand it's difficult. On the other hand, Uber and Bolt and the ones that operate internationally would say they need to be very agile and they need to drop prices when there's low demand. I remember there were problems about short trips, but the users want short trips and they also want long trips. So I understand that sometimes the price of long trips is dropped. But isn't Uber also obliged to attract customers through that pricing mechanism that is very flexible? How do you keep that and keep the drivers happy?
let me tell you something. Uber, when it is obliged to attract customers, who carries those customers? Uber does not own assets. They don't have vehicles. They don't do maintenance. They don't pour petrol. It would be fair to say for Uber to come to us and say, look, we are obligated to attract clients, but you have assets and vehicles and you pour petrol. How can we find middle ground? No, that is not that. Our petrol, our maintenance is compromised in the name of attracting clients that need to be carried by our car. It cannot be that Uber is obliged to attract clients who will be carried by what? By our assets. So we equally need to be engaged as to, are you able to maintain the car with this, so that the so-called attracted clients must not drive in tattered or worn-out vehicles, or not even vehicles at all, because our vehicles are being repossessed by the bank.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for outlining your concerns for us. That was Chris Ravhuhali, convener for Unity and Diversity at the Tshwane region for e-hailing services. Let's get a response now. We're joined by Jacob Mamabolo, Gauteng MEC for Public Transport and Roads Infrastructure. MEC, thank you. I hope you were able to hear that. Can you give us any response from a governmental perspective?
Firstly, good evening to you, to all the viewers. Thanks for inviting me. Let me just start by saying that yesterday, as the provincial government of Gauteng, we met with the e-hailing business partners and, of course, the drivers. And our approach to the issues is firstly that national government is, through the amendment of the National Land Transport Act, looking at the issues that are being raised as it pertains to the regulation of the e-hailing industry. So those matters are being attended to, and as you correctly said, once the legislation is implemented, it will bring much more needed stability, clarity, and consistency. Yeah. The second part is that the e-hailing industry, as matters stand, has no platform whatsoever for consultation, for exercising openness, transparency, engaging the stakeholders and their business partners who are raising precisely the issues of what they consider arbitrary changes in pricing and giving discounts to commuters without them being able to, without being engaged.
Yeah.
And the issues they gave, an example, you're carrying a commuter, you expect them to pay so much.
Yeah, MEC, he did. From a driver's perspective, we know that is the issue. But you've mentioned regulations. I understand that the National Land Transport Amendment Bill was passed, which allows for regulations to be devised. Are there any regulations on the cards? And if not, why not? Because, e-hailing has been in this country for a very long time, and I think the same issues have been coming up over and over again.
Yes, I think you were right when you said that the act has not yet been implemented, and that is a matter that national government is looking at. And I'm quite confident that that issue will be resolved and the law will come into effect. I was just pointing out to you that the complexities of pricing, of consultation, of transparency and openness are matters that need to be taken to the negotiating table. They need to have discussions about them. The e-hailing industry must come to the table. So are the driver partners. Whilst the issues of national policy and legislation are being finalized, some of these issues as the industry, they can really deal with them by sitting around the table and dealing with them as business partners whilst legislation is being looked at. And that's the approach we are taking.
When will the legislation be ready? When will there be something that we can talk about?
Yeah, I think it will be only fair for me at this point to say that let's give national government the chance and the opportunity to deal with this matter, because it's within national government's purview. And I think it will only be fair that we allow them the space to deal with that issue, because they understand the challenges that are there. And that's why government initiated legislation. But some of these issues, really, the partners need to talk amongst themselves.
MEC, in the meantime, female drivers have spoken about being molested, and there's a security issue that does seem very valid, where people can use a SIM, they can call a driver, then they can basically steal the car or steal what's inside the car or put the driver in the boot. We know there are security issues because people can use that information. Is there anything that government can do?
Well, the issues of security and, of course, the safety of the people, it's first and foremost the matter of law enforcement and the criminal justice system. But equally, in this business environment, I am aware, and I know in my discussions with both sides, that the e-hailing industry says that they've provided some level of security, and they expect their driver partners to also contribute to security arrangements. But the industry itself cannot solve these problems of security and what needs to be done by talking past each other and parallel to each other. The issue of security, the putting lives of people at risk, and the financial investments that can be made can only be well resolved if both parties can have the courage and the determination to sit around the table and deal with that issue.
But MEC, finally, with all due respect, what could Uber as a platform, a tech company, do about crime in South Africa? They may be able to set up a private security company to follow the Uber drivers around at great cost, and then the whole business model falls apart. So this is reliant surely on government, this aspect of things.
Yes, but that's the point I'm making to you, that in the discussions I was privileged and very honored to have with them, they have all acknowledged that they each have a role to play. Most importantly, the e-hailing companies. They don't deny that they've got a responsibility. They can explore various options. The driver partners or drivers have got proposals, but the issue is create a platform for people to engage, explore solutions, whilst, of course, in the country, security resides and, of course, sits with law enforcement. But they themselves are saying they have invested in security, there's technology that they've introduced, and I firmly believe that for as long as they recognize that they've got a role to play in security, let them sit down. There are benchmarks they can make. There are other best practices they can draw in. The most important issue here is the partners are not talking to each other. And I think the sooner they appreciate the importance of sitting around the table, they will solve the problem, even jointly. They can engage law enforcement and say, whilst as a sector, this is how far we are prepared to go, but we request government and law enforcement to help us to this extent. As long as they are not talking, the problems will persist, and even some of the issues, they can really deal with them than just looking at government alone. Government must support, must come in, and that's why we are talking to them. But it's very difficult when they are poles apart. They are not talking to each other. And one of the difficulties that we have is the e-hailing companies are refusing to recognize and even to engage with the driver partners. So in that way, when they are not working together, there's no single problem they can solve.
All right, thank you for your time. That was Jacob Mamabolo, Gauteng MEC for Public Transport and Roads Infrastructure.